So here we have another part of the Poison Hill. And in this scene, Gertrude is having a conversation with Dr. Nair, who is one of the doctors where she works. She works at a place called the Medical Institute, which is kind of a research institute. She's a secretary. Dr. Nair is Indian born, has come to work at the Institute via England. Um, and she doesn't like him much. No one really likes him. He's kind of off putting and arrogant. But they end up having a conversation. And this is part of her decision about what she's going to do about Lewis, her brother, um, and if she can do anything about it. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading. Dr. Nair came up from the lab, brushing past David, muttering, "Out of my way, boy." She was looking in her purse for a Kotex, turning the bag so no one could see into it. It was a minute before she realized that Dr. Nair had spoken to her as well. "I'm sorry, I didn't. Do you know where Miss Dietrich went?" Miss Dietrich. He meant Rose. How should she know? "No, I just got back myself." "Are you all right, Miss Lesko?" "I'm fine," she muttered. "I just wish you wouldn't keep turning up like a bad fairy whenever I'm—" "What?" Dr. Nair was still across the room, but he stepped across to her. "Nothing. I'm a little distracted, that's all, Dr. Nair. Is Dr. Bashaw here?" "He's at the Commodore. There's a benefit for the Children's Hospital. All of the doctors are there." "Oh, aren't you invited?" Gertrude said this lightly, hoping to turn his attention away from her, and realized too late her mistake. Of course, he would not have been invited to such a thing, not in a public hotel where they might not serve him. "I chose not to attend. I have a great deal of work to do." "Dr. Nair." "Yes, Miss Lesko?" Of all the doctors at the Institute, he was the last one she would have chosen to confide in. "I have a medical question. I was reading this book." "Yes." It was about, I saw the book in, well, it was a drugstore or something, I guess. I just looked at it. It was about degenerates. She looked at Dr. Nair, who seemed not to understand. Degenerates, sexual. I mean, deviants and that kind of thing. A cramp began. Nothing to do now but get out of it as quickly as possible. "Well, it said some doctors treat that kind of thing. In the book, it said that. And do you know if that's true? Because I didn't think it was." Dr. Nair's expression did not change. "Is it true that some doctors treat sexual deviants? Is that what you're asking?" "I'm sorry, Dr. Nair. I didn't know. I was just reading it in the drugstore at lunch. I didn't have anything else to read. I was just curious." "I understand, Miss Leskow. I'm surprised you chose such reading material." "I didn't know, sir. When I picked up the book, it seemed very innocent." Such books should be prevented from falling into the wrong hands, it seems to me, to think of a book like that in a drugstore where any member of the public. Dr. Nair shook his head. "But to answer your question, yes. There are some doctors who have made it a specialty. Gland experts, for example, and alienists, doctors who treat the minds of disturbed people." "Really?" She tried to breathe naturally. "Do you think, would any doctor here at the Institute ever treat or study anything like that? Or anywhere else, in Chicago, for instance?" Dr. Nair took a step back, feeling in the pockets of his lab coat for something. She kept expecting one of his usual prompt, precise answers. But he paused a long time before he said, "Certainly there are doctors here who treat such cases. But there are only two things a doctor can really do for such a person. He can inject him with some nostrum, gland extracts, vitamins, treatments of no proven worth. Or he can listen as a patient tells him his troubles." "Does that help?" "I don't believe it's guaranteed as a cure. No, there is no proven cure." "No cure? Then what can you do for someone like that?" Dr. Nair shrugged. "Some of them, I guess, live as best they can. Some of them are destroyed by their obsessions." But she was going to protest, but she remembered she was only supposed to be talking about something in a book. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for answering me." "Of course, Miss Lesko." But the wife had walked far and was very tired, and strive as she would, she fell sound asleep. Many hours she slept, and the hoodie entered through a window and let fall a ring on her hand. The girl awoke with a start and leant forward to grasp him, but he was already flying off, and she only seized a feather from his wing, and when dawn came, she got up and told the woman. "He has gone over the hill of poison," she said, "and there you cannot follow him without horseshoes on your hands and feet. But I will help you. Put on this suit of men's clothes and go down the road till you come to the smithy, and there you can learn to make horseshoes for yourself." The girl thanked her and put on the clothes and went down the road to do her bidding. So hard did she work that in a few days she was able to make the horseshoes. Early one morning she set out for the hill of poison. On her hands and feet she went, but even with the horseshoes on she had to be very careful not to stumble, lest some poisoned thorns should enter her flesh and she should die. The hot water bottle had slipped from her stomach. She put it back on and lay against the pillows, the book still open before her, her mind dull from Dr. Kirby's pills. Alida knocked on the door. "Do you want a tray?" "No." "Are you sure?" "Yes." She heard Alida go away, and she stretched out her legs, turning towards the wall. Some of the torment was gone. It had been hopeless to think that she could ever persuade Louis to go to a doctor anyway. But she was still a coward forever and ever. The room was dark when she woke again. The house was quiet. Tree shadows moved against the wall. She picked up the bottle of pills from beside the bed and looked at Dr. Kirby's name. The next morning, drinking a glass of water by the kitchen sink to the sound of the bells of the college chapel, she said, "Mother, if it doesn't work out in Montana, I'm going to have the operation."